We have a lot to talk about. Day 7 of the Karen Reed trial. The cross-examination of Jen McCabe, which I might add is not over. That's starting again today. Yeah. By the end of the day, on day 7, the judge had it, the witness had it, the attorney was making comments he shouldn't have made. The judge says, okay, it's ending now. We're ending this. Everybody's going home. So it's going to resume today. Not to mention, there's going to be the redirect that we have to sit through. This woman, Jen McCabe, has really been put through the ringer. So I'm going to recap the entire thing right after this intro. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Rebecca, your host, and this is Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. So you have something to listen to while you're crafting, and you don't have to be a crafter to watch this show. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. It really helps me, and I really appreciate it. And subscribe if you're new to the channel. Would love to have you as part of the family. So let's talk about, I'm going to play a drinking game. Every time I say so, no. All right, so we're going to talk about the cross-examination of Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe is a friend of the victim, John O'Keefe, but she's also the sister-in-law of Brian Albert, the homeowner. Her sister is married to Brian Albert. She was at the house party that they were having that evening. And she was the one looking out the window for her friend, John O'Keefe, to come to the house party. So there's a lot to unpack with that. Now, she testified at the previous trial last year. She has testified at multiple grand jury proceedings. She has given interviews. She has been interviewed by Canton Police Department. She's been interviewed by the state troopers. She has been interviewed by the FBI. This woman has been through the ringer, and she is charged with having to remember every detail of what she testified to. So in the first trial last year, she got a little testy. She was argumentative. She was getting very irritated, and she has kind of an RBF, resting bitch face anyway. But this time around, let me tell you, she had on pearl earrings, a soft blue cardigan, a whole different demeanor. She's smiling. She's helpful. She's laughing. Oh, I'm sorry. Not the person that you saw in the first trial. And very, very prepared for this testimony, despite on cross-examination, one of the first things that you always do is you ask about preparation. Did you meet with the prosecution? Did they tell you what they were going to ask you? Did they prepare you? Did you rehearse it? He asked all those questions. She said, no, she didn't. So you're thinking, well, wow, she's really good. No, not so fast. It's just my guess is that she has a lawyer herself, and that would be wise for her to have gotten a lawyer, and that he prepared her. And when you can tell, because if the lawyer asks more than one question, she's like, I'm sorry, that was 3 questions, or that was 2 questions. And if he mentions a document, well, isn't that what you said in this report? She's like, can I see the report? Can I see what do you look, can I see that? And then when he tries to refresh her recollection, most people will read the document that you were refreshing their recollection with, and it'll trigger something, or it won't trigger something, but they'll testify to what they just saw in the document. She's like, nope, that doesn't refresh my recollection. My memory is my memory, and here's what I remember. And when she responds, she looks at the jury. Now, this is classic preparation for a trial. This is what experts do, but they're experts. They know to do this. Normal witnesses don't look at the jury. They look at the lawyer who's asking them the question. And when they answer, they look at the lawyer because he's the one that asked the question. No, she turns and she looks at the jury when she's answering the question. She has been prepared to the nth degree, but probably not, clearly not by the prosecution, by her own private attorney. And the reason the jury doesn't know this is because he's not allowed, the defense attorney is not allowed to ask them. Now, when she meets with the prosecution and the preparation with the prosecution, which she says didn't happen, that's not attorney-client privilege. But when she meets with her own lawyer and there's preparation and all this stuff going on, nobody gets to know that because that's privilege. It's attorney-client privilege. She's hired that lawyer to represent her. And he did a good job preparing her, I will say that. So I'm going to go through this testimony and we'll see how we do here. Anyway, so let's go back to the beginning. And he breaks it kind of down by different subjects. First thing he's asking her about is the preparation for the case. Then he asked her about her conversations with Carrie Roberts, and she said pretty much the same thing Carrie Roberts said, is they became fast friends, they bonded over their trauma, and they talk often, and she says, no, we don't talk about our testimony. But yes, they talk about the case. We're playing with words here, and she's doing it. You asked me if we discuss our testimony. No, we didn't discuss our testimony, but we talk about the case a lot. So she knows what you know, and you know what she knows, and you're comparing notes. Yes, clearly. And then we talked about trial prep. Then he talked about family and who's what, who's cops, who's not. Like, this is such a small town. Everybody's related to everybody. She has, and he kept saying, do you have, how did he put it? He said, do you have connections with the Boston PD? And she's like, no, I have a connection with Brian Albert. I don't have a connection with Boston Police Department because Brian Albert's a Boston police officer. But so we're, again, wordplay, but there's family members that are Boston Police, Canton Police, family and friends. Boston Police, Canton Police, state troopers. Like, one of them is Brian Albert's brother, younger brother, Chris, is on some board, that board of supervisors that canvasses the police. So, yes, she has connections, but she's like, no, not with the departments. So I have connections with those people. So again, she's playing with the words there. So then we talk about this FBI meeting. Now, the jury doesn't know that there was an FBI meeting. They know that this group of people came to the house, this agency, this, they're not, I don't know why they're not allowed to say the FBI, but okay. So they come to her door one morning after this event, and she answers the door. She doesn't know who they are. And they ask for Jen McCabe. And she says, oh, I'm not the homeowner. And they leave. But right after they leave, they call her on the phone and she answers. And they're like, we would like to interview you. And she's like, oh, and they identify themselves at that point. She's like, oh, okay, come on in. So they go in the house. And she says, I'm going to need 10 minutes. So she leaves and she goes upstairs and she calls 5 different people. Now, they made it clear when she came back down after making those 5 phone calls that during this interview, if she did not tell the truth, it would be a crime. And she understood that. So they asked, what were you doing during that 10 minutes? Who did you call? And she told them, I called Carrie Roberts, her good buddy because of the trauma, and she called her husband. Now, after calling her husband comes home for this interview, but she doesn't tell him about the other 3 phone calls that she makes. Then during this, as this interview is taking place, and it was a very short interview because very quickly into this, she's like, I'm not comfortable answering these questions. And she asked them to leave. And they do. But she calls them back and says, oh, I forgot to tell you about a few people. So in addition to her calling her husband and Carrie Roberts, she also called John O'Keefe's mother, Peggy. She also called the district attorney's office and spoke with the witness, the victim advocate. And I can't read my own writing. Oh, Brian Albert. It's called Brian Albert, her brother-in-law. Now, if you make 5 phone calls and you come down within minutes and they're asking you, what did you do? Who'd you call? And you only give them 2 instead of 5 with the excuse that you didn't remember the other 3, is your memory really that bad? Seems like your memory, she's claiming her memory is really good 3 years after the fact. So that night when they were out at the waterfall, she said she did not see any tension between John and Karen. She spent most of that evening actually talking to Karen. And then they talked about Brian Albert and Brian Higgins play fighting. And she said that's what she saw in the video. We've seen the waterfall video where it looks like there might be some angst between them, but she says, oh, they're play fighting. That's what I saw. I saw that video too, and honestly, that was my impression as well, that they were just kidding around. So as she was leaving, because she was walking out the door with Karen, and the guys were still in the bar, and she didn't know if they were coming right out or not. She's like, hey, you might as well come with me. But by the time they got outside, the men had gotten out too. So she left, Karen Reed left with John O'Keefe. And she described that when she gets home, she enters through the front door. They park in the driveway. They enter through the front door. Now there's 3 different doors at the front. The leftmost door over here, because things are opposite on the screen, right? The leftmost door is the front door. Then there's another door that's in the front. They're calling the side door. And then there's another door attached to the garage, also in the front. They're all 3 front doors, but so I would think this one on the left is the main door. So she said when she got there, as soon as you walk in the front door, you take a right, there's the kitchen. And sitting at the kitchen table was Brian Albert Jr., Julie Nagel, Sarah Levinson, and Caitlin Albert. And then Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were in the next room. She's calling it a TV room. But the kitchen, from the kitchen table, you can see right into that room. It's almost like it's open concept, basically. They're in another room, but everybody can see them and probably hear them as well. And at the kitchen sink was her sister. So then she talks about when she pulled up. She said when she pulled up, she saw a Jeep, and she saw there were a few other cars in the driveway. The Jeep was in front of the house, in front of the mailbox. And that was Brian Higgins' Jeep. Now, there was some question about, is there a snowplow on the front of this Jeep? And she says, I don't remember that. Anyway, and that was really all there. It was never mentioned again. So at some point she was told, hey, there's a car outside. So she goes outside. Now I'm going to go forward here because the timing of this is good. At one point in her previous testimony, she had testified that every time she texted John, she had just looked out the door. I'm going to try to tell you this in sort of a timeline fashion. So we know she knew that Julie Nagel at some point her brother was there, and she went later on after the fact and asked Julie, can you send me the text that he sent you, that he had arrived there? And that text where he says he's there at the home was 12:23 a.m. Now we know he sat there for a little while. Julie finally goes out and tells him she wasn't ready to leave, and she goes back in. Now he was parked also out in front of the house behind the Jeep, which was behind Karen. So here is how the timeline went. So at 12:14 and 27 seconds, Jen texts John, "Where to?" And that's when they then the next thing they arrive. Then at 12:27:33, she texts him here, because she had looked out in the front and she had seen the car there, the Jeep. At 12:31:47, she looks out the window and she sees that that Karen's car is now pulled up towards the flagpole. The first time she looks out, the car is directly out the front door, the main door. The next time she sees it, the car has pulled up towards the flagpole. That's when she texts John and says, "Pull behind me," because she's thinking they didn't know where to park. And then at 12:40, she texts him again, "Hello." And then she looks out again a third time and she sees that Karen's vehicle is now pulled up even further past the flagpole. So she texts him again at 12:42, "Where are you?" And at 12:45, she texts, "Hello." And she looks out the window again. Well, after she says, okay, I'm convinced. The 12:40, "Hello." Then she says, that's when she saw it pulled up a further time. "Where are you?" Then she saw that the SUV was gone. At 12:45, she texts, "Hello, SUV's gone." So this attorney is very clever. So when you were looking out that window, how was the visibility? Oh, it was fine. The snowstorm was just starting. So I could see pretty good. I could see Karen's vehicle across the lawn in 3 different spots. And she admitted, yeah, the lawn's kind of flat. There's nothing to obstruct her vision of the lawn. In fact, she noticed some tire tracks across the street. That's how good the visibility still was. The storm hadn't really gotten there yet. It was snowing, but she could still see all that. But she did not see a body at any of those times. Now, she said, "I wasn't looking for a body. I wasn't looking at the lawn. I was looking at the vehicles. Yeah, interesting, huh? Didn't see a body. And I would think even if you're looking at these vehicles, if you see you're going to see a body if it's there. That's just, yeah. Then she was shown a photograph of the house and she was asked, "Can you identify which bedroom is the Albert bedroom, Brian and your sister's bedroom?" And she circled it and it was the leftmost bedroom. Now, this is on right in front of the lawn where the body was that night, where all the activity was. CPR's going on, the emergency people are there, the fire trucks, the police, the ambulances, for him, for Karen. Their window is right there where the action is. Yet, after all of this is over, Jen McCabe says she went into their house because they never came out. So she goes in their house and goes right to their bedroom, upstairs, right to their bedroom, opens the door and wakes them up and lets them know what just happened out on their front lawn that they missed. So this attorney's so clever. He's like, "Okay, so tell me about the dog." So she talked to him about this dog. "Did you see the dog when you went in the house?" "No, I didn't see the dog." "When you were going upstairs, did you see the dog?" "No, I didn't see the dog." "Did you know that the dog usually slept in their bedroom?" "I didn't see the dog." "When you went in the bedroom, did you see the dog?" "I didn't see the dog." What? Where was the dog? I tell you what, if I'm dead asleep and somebody walks in my room, because the dog does sleep, my dog does sleep with me. she's going to react. And if she, for argument's sake, maybe the dog is very familiar with Jen McCabe. Maybe she's been in that house 1,000 times and loves on this dog, and the dog loves her, and he knows who she is, so he's not going to react. That dog is going to get out of that bed and run to that person and lick on her or whatever. This is, oh, look, Jen's here. Or, oh, look, a stranger's here. One or the other. She didn't see a dog. So I thought that was really, really interesting testimony. What else? So she was asked, again, going back to the lawn, when you were looking out there, did you hear any unusual noise? No. Did you hear a door slam? No. Did you hear any revving engine? No. Did you hear a collision? Did you hear any screeching tires? Did you hear anybody screaming for help? Did you hear any moaning and groaning? No, never heard any of that. So she, then we talk about, fast forward to the next morning when she gets the phone call. And she testified that on direct examination that she heard Karen Reed say, I did it, I did it, I did it. Or I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, in front of a female first responder. But when she testified in front of the grand jury, she never mentioned that. In fact, she testified that Karen said, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? And there was 227 pages to her grand jury testimony. And he says, well, if you want to go through that and find out, because she says, I did tell them. I told them the truth. That's what she said. So he says, well, we'll wait, go through it. And the judge is like, no, we're not going through 227 pages. And if it's not in there, it's not in there. Okay. Then she had an interview with Trooper Proctor where he was taking notes. She says she told him she heard Karen Reed say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. That's not in his police report. In his police report, is nothing. And she's like, well, I'm not responsible for his police report. So you're saying the police report's wrong? Or, he just left it out? Okay. Then the morning of the 29th, after she wakes up the Alberts, they're all sitting at the table. Other people are coming over. Everybody wants to know what's going on, None of those witnesses were ever separated. None of the house party people, like everybody, it's crazy. She's like, no, it's just family. We're just sitting there talking. They were never asked not to talk to each other. They were never separate. Usually when during an investigation, one of the first things you do is you separate the witnesses. Remember that from the set of Rust? They separated all the people. So they couldn't talk amongst themselves. That didn't happen. Instead, they all sat at the kitchen table comparing notes. And she goes, well, it wasn't so much, we weren't comparing notes. They were just wanted to know what happened. I was telling them what happened. Yeah. It's at that point she remembers Karen Reed saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So she calls Detective Lang, the Canton police officer who was investigating this, who she also knows in person. She's familiar with him. She said, can you come back? I remembered some things that I need to tell you. This is the morning of 29th. There's a blizzard outside. A blizzard. And she is asking this cop to come back during a blizzard because she's got information. What's in his report is, I hope I didn't hit him. Oh no, I told him. I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Well, what he recorded was, I hope I didn't hit him. And she was adamant during this testimony. That's what I heard in front of this first responder. And in fact, right at the end, she was getting downright angry. She, the soft, sweet, demure demeanor went away, and she was getting angry. That's what I remember. So, okay. I just want to see if they've left anything out, because there's going to be more when we listen to the rest of this cross-examination for tomorrow. Okay. So that was where we left off. The discussion of, who she told what and when regarding this statement. I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Yeah. In fact, yeah, it's crazy. What is this woman's motivation for telling these different versions? Like, all of a sudden, she's adamant. If this is what you heard and this is what you remember 3 years after the fact, why didn't you tell the grand jury that 4 or 5 months after the fact, when your memory was much better than it probably is today? Oh no, guys. All right. Happy Friday, everybody. Don't forget, hit the thumbs up. I will see you in the next video. This weekend, I'm going to take a look at the rest of this cross-examination. Hopefully, we'll get to the redirect. Hopefully, we'll finish this witness and get on. We've still got Brian Albert. We've got Brian Higgins. We've got Julie Nagel. We've got all the people that are in the house are going to probably testify. This trial is going to take a chunk of my life I will never get back. And by the way, I found my iPad. I'll tell you all about that during Sundays this week in Crime Live, where I update you on what happened other than Karen Reed this week in True Crime. I'll see you then. That's at 11 a.m. Bye, everybody. Take care.